All right. Hi everybody, welcome to Healing with Marcus. This is part 2 of Seeking Love from a Wounded Inner Space. We are looking at the myth that's living in our society that tells us that if we just find our other half, we'll be happy. That if we can only find that one person who is our soulmate, we'll be happy. And on a certain level, there's nothing untrue about the joy, the life-giving experience, the uplifting experience of meeting somebody who vibrates on your frequency. It is one of the most beautiful experiences we can ever have. And when we see couples who have married that way, they usually find ways to make it work. It's very beautiful. It's a beautiful experience for humans. But the fallacy is that we go into a dependency, that we don't recognize that in order to survive and be fully adult human grown beings, we don't need another human being. We go into a dependency, an interdependency, and a codependency of the other person. And as long as they love us, we feel like we'll be okay. That's where the trap is, right? And so many of us have gone through it. So many people have either been married to somebody they really loved and lost that marriage, or they've just lost a partner, or whatever might have happened. And the interesting thing is that when we come back home, we can maybe start to see, oh, so I was extremely dependent on this other person. I was so very, very entrained with this other person that I felt that I could not go on my own. And what we want to look at is what happens when you start to find that, oh, so I felt half when this happened. I felt like there wasn't much left of me. What happens with our energy field, with our chakra centers when we go through this? Well, we do get pretty beat up on the energy levels of our body. Our chakra system can take a fairly big beating. Sometimes people die from this, right? If you look at society, it's not unusual that people die from a broken heart. Now, it may take a few years, but it's still the reason. If we look at their lives, we look at what happened, we can still see that they lost their will to live when a certain emotional incident happened. And then it takes expression, it expresses itself in our bodies as disease or illness in the area of where your specific chakra is beat up. So it's heart, solar plexus. Solar plexus is willpower. And if we go through something where we thought we were going to be with this person, like I did that, right? I had that experience a bunch of years ago. I thought I was going to create a family with this person, and then it all fell apart, and I had to watch some pretty horrendous things. But in my world before that, it had been clear that we were going to create a family and just stay together. And when that didn't happen, my solar plexus felt like it was churning into pieces, like I was dying. And over the year, and the heart, the same story in my heart, where it's very broken. And then as I sat in my healing process, and I started breathing space into the heart, and I started breathing room for it to start to bloom, and I started filling it up with a lot of inner love. When that started happening, and then I realized that this internal love that I thought was connected to another human, almost always, actually always, is my love for them. And yes, we feel something coming from another person too, but it's really your love for them that's filling you up. That means that you have access to that love inside of you. That means that if you sit and fill your heart up in a meditation or a healing session, breath work, you fill your heart up, your body starts to heal it by itself. So in my experience then, the heart started healing, And then there was a strain of energy going into my sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is around the belly button. This is where self-worth lives. This is where most of our abandonment wounds end up. This is where a sense of self lives. So when we go through trauma, either in our early years, like before 14, between 7 to 14, we say that when you have trauma, it happens to the sacral chakra. If it's before 7, the trauma hits your root chakra. Now, quite a few of us have had trauma in both of these times, right? But if we look at the sacral chakra and the abandonment wounds that can happen within a family, for example, we end up, my heart was wounded because I was trying to cover up the abandonment wound in the sacral chakra. And if we truly look at our society and the dream of the soulmate, the dream of having somebody at our side at all costs and all weathers, and no matter what's going on, they're going to stay by our side, we realize that, hang on, is that to cover up a feeling of inadequacy in myself? Is that to cover up my own insecurities? Is the thought inside of your mind, if this person only loves me, I'll be okay. If they only stay with me, I'm going to be all right. Is that the thought in your mind? Not that that's wrong, it's completely natural, but if it is that thought, then we can start to dissect, so why am I really with this person? Am I really with them because I have trauma that tells me I'm not lovable? And as long as this person loves me, I guess I am lovable. But if they leave me, it must have been true. My trauma must have been true. The voice that says I am not lovable must have been right. So when we start to see the connections, the connectivity, even though it's not easy, we can also start to understand that, oh, so that's why it's imperative to start to heal the original trauma. Start to sit with the feelings of inadequacy, the feelings of abandonment, the feelings of loneliness. Bring our awareness to the discomfort. Bring it into that area. Breathe space into it. Breathe into that feeling and see what comes up. When you can, with your awareness, with the consciousness, move consciously to that feeling. It's like you're facing your fears. Once you start to be able to do that, it's not as scary anymore. We don't have to try and get away all the time. We don't have to try and avoid certain feelings all the time. This lessens our sense of addiction, our sense of escapism, and it grounds us into our body and into Earth Mother. It helps us to feel more solid inside when we're not trying to cover up wounds with different forms of behaviors. So coming back home, this is why there's a fallacy, thinking that if we only find the right person, we'll be happy. The fallacy is that we're covering up our own traumas by thinking if we just find that other person to love us, we will be happy. Another way to see through this illusion is to spend some time in nature. Go out for a few days. I mean, if you can. It depends a little bit on how you're set up and who you are and if you have the experience. But at least spend one day in nature. Go out and just spend a full day, either alone or with a good friend, but alone is not a bad idea. You go out there and you just spend time there. You feel how your energy shifts. You feel how your mindset shifts. You suddenly understand that, oh, this level of reality in nature is very different from the level of reality in either in the matrix or in the agreements that we have about life. And if you spend more time in nature, you start to recognize that, oh, so the trees don't need anybody. They probably love a partner, but they don't need a partner. Just like you and I, we probably would love to have somebody walking by our side, but we don't need it. There's a fairly big difference. And as we come back home, we learn how to honor ourselves and each other. And when we start to learn to honor ourselves and each other, there's so much more power going on inside of you. There's more strength going on inside of you. And at some point, this growth process leads you to feel like you are a solid, integral, integrated individual. Meaning you can stand on your own 2 feet. And when we do, there's a beautiful passage in The Prophet by Khalil Gibran where he talks about I think it's on love. No, it's on marriage. He talks about how when 2 people walk next to each other, just like the pillars and the temple, without leaning on each other, when they walk next to each other, they can create and hold up a very strong, big roof. But if they start to lean on each other, it's going to fall. All of it is going to fall. And that's what our modern, I think, illusion is about. So we think we can find somebody that we can lean on. And one problem with the leaning is that if I'm leaning on somebody for my well-being, at some point they're going to want to lean away. Nobody likes this weight on them. And if they start leaning away, I'm going to start to feel like I need to control them so my happiness doesn't leave me. So if I can stand on my 2 feet and whoever I'm meeting can stand on their 2 feet, we can walk next to each other like 2 adults. Like 2 adults, free spirits, human beings. Soulful, loving, kind. We can have agreements that are still in a very healthy, safe, beautiful space. But we walk next to each other. So, looking at that inner abandonment wound, looking deep within and sitting with it, that is the beginning of that healing process. Now, the process can take a few months or years. Sometimes it's an ongoing process of discovering, uncovering, discharging, refreshing, recharging, renewing. Of cells, of ideas, of energy layers in our system. You know, our physical body has programmed itself in conjunction with our brain, right? So if you feel you have an addiction to something, it can take a long time for an addiction to leave our energy field because it's so integrated with our nervous system, with how we're feeling in the body. And as you start to breathe into your inner space, you start to create space, you start to ground yourself, anchor yourself into Earth Mother, it becomes a lot easier to notice, oh, so I'm in my addiction. Something's active in my system, I'm trying to avoid some feelings. Can I breathe into this? Can I stay here and now? Instead of trying to escape. Can I stay here and now? Is the sense of abandonment coming up? What is it that's coming up? This is how we come back home. But we do have to look within. All right, everybody. Have a lovely, lovely, amazing day. Look forward to seeing you here again, seeing your comments. Please click like and subscribe if this is something that resonates with you. And wish you a beautiful day. Namaste and aho.